Astrology is a vehicle for self-knowledge and for knowledge of anything that you can apply it to. I'm a predictive astrologer. I am more focused on describing a person's environment on a specific day than I am concerned at all about what their mindset is going to be. I'm trying to successfully predict whether it's going to rain or not, so you can decide whether you need to take an umbrella or not. This is the oldest science on Earth. It is the science of concurrences between celestial bodies and events. It is a mathematical tool with which to measure the occurrences in your life, period. Because we're dealing with a fractal science here. For example, if 1 day equals 1 year, then 1 degree can also equal 1 day. Why it works? That's like asking me, why does water freeze at 32 degrees? And why is fire? This is how the law is supposed to manifest. The miseducation in the first place is you being allowed to say, I'm an Aries. How are you Aries? Aries is 30 degrees of the sky, my man. That's like saying, I am my middle finger. That this part of me over here ain't me. All 12 of the signs in the sky are equally you, not just the one that the sun is in, not just the one that is rising when you were born. These things are sections of a chart, geometrical slices of the sky. You have a Pluto every month. Does that mean somebody dies every month? No. The chart says permanent life transformation. It doesn't say death. It doesn't say lottery win. The planet of death is identical to the planet of sex because both death and sex are high life vibrational movement. So when you talk about a planet, it ain't just one thing, it's an ideogram. It talks to 1,000 things, but it talks to 1,000 specific things. Astrologers are ever growing because we're people. So we don't get to know every single thing the first year you study astrology. It's really hard to believe in something you don't know.
Something big is coming.
Yeah, one way or the other. Better or worse.
Welcome to the Oliver Schirach Show, where we explore the supernatural, mystical and spiritual dimensions of life, from near-death experiences and lucid dreaming to astrology and ancient wisdom. Each episode to inspire you to expand your consciousness and to reconnect with your authentic self. In this episode we talk astrology, but not the fortune-telling version, not the vague horoscopes, but we talk about astrology as science. My guest, Ra Akhu, has more than 40 plus years of experience as a predictive astrologer. He shows us how the stars can work like a clock, precise, measurable and practical, all math and geometry. We explore how trained astrologers use charts, degrees and planetary cycles to time real events. Things like broken teeth, relationships, life milestones and those why now moments. You hear about planets, houses and transits. If you're skeptical, stay with us. This conversation treats astrology as a timing language, math and geometry, not as divination. We'll cover why your exact birth time matters and how cycles in the sky connect with turning points on the earth and your life. Think of it as method over magic, science over intuition, for curious beginners, for seasoned seekers and for doubters who want to test the claims. By the end, you'll know how to ask your astrologer sharper questions and you'll have a clearer picture of what astrology actually can do. So let's go into the clockwork of the cosmos with my guest Ra Akhu. Welcome. I have today Ra Akhu on my podcast. Ra Akhu is an astrology expert. You will share a little bit about your story so people know the background. And I try to ask questions to get a little bit of broad idea of astrology. This is probably going to be a longer episode because I know you have a lot of knowledge. And so I'm very pleased. And you're in Atlanta, right? at the moment, or New York?
Yeah, I'm in Decatur, Georgia, which is right outside of Atlanta.
Okay, perfect. Because I know you've been moving around. So welcome to the Oliver Schirach Show. And this is going to be really interesting. Ra, who are you? How would you describe yourself with 3 words, and why would you choose those words?
With 3 words.
I like
Studious. It'd be the first word. Genuine. And no nonsense. Why would I pick those 3 words? Because my favorite thing to do is learn, whether it's a social or professional situation. So I'm going to be the student at all times, no matter what, regardless of who. And I'm going to be genuine, and I'm going to be no nonsense, because I prefer the same. So if I had to sum myself up at this moment with 3 words, those would be the 3.
Oh, yeah, straightforward, I would say, is another one. But that comes with no nonsense.
Yeah, that's right. Well, you got to be straightforward. People want, they come to you because they want something specific. So to be straightforward is the best thing to be. How much time do I have left on this planet?
Who knows?
Well, I'm going to be optimistic. I'm going to be here for a while. But if I'm going to be a realist, I should be past the halfway point. And at this age, I look back on my whole life, and all I see is where I've wasted a lot of time. So as far as moving forward goes, I don't want to waste any time. I don't want to waste anybody else's time. So being straight up and genuine are 2 means by which to circumvent any waste of time.
So when did you make that shift into that mindset?
I don't know, around my 50s, in my early 50s, I became a father. At the age of 51, I became a father. When you become a father, you start to look at life with a lot more concern for your welfare, your longevity, and other people other than your own self, right? So I looked at my whole life. When I became a father, you review your whole stack, and I came to some conclusions. And I had other ideas when I didn't have children as to what I would be like if I had children, right? Nah. Whatever I thought before I became a father, that's trash. Now, as a father, I'm beginning to feel things and consider things that I never would have. So this is when I came to the conclusion that I ain't got a whole lot of I don't have it all to do over again. So moving forward, I want to do it with a little bit more discretion and a little bit more deliberate intent.
Yeah, it changes when you become a father. I know that.
Yeah.
And
I don't care what you think you know about yourself when you actually make that shift and it is put upon you and you accept the mantle of it wholeheartedly, then it's going to cause a major mentality shift, because you are no longer concerned strictly for yourself. You're concerned for the life of another. Hella responsibility.
that's true. Now that I talked to an astrologer, my thought is, did you read it in your birth chart that you're going to be a father at that age?
No. No, I hadn't, because I had not considered the symbolism or the indications that were given for the year that I became a father with children in mind. I hadn't considered that. I knew that the sun represented children, but because in my mind, I'm like, I'm not having any kids. You understand? My intention was not to have any children. So when I saw the sun, I dismissed the idea that it represented children, and I ran with the other things that it meant. In hindsight, I know much better. I mean, I know there are other circumstances throughout my life. This is what people got to understand. That because you study astrology, you are able to know more than you would had you not taken to astrological considerations to consideration. But this doesn't automatically enable and entitle you to know everything. You don't get to know everything. You're still a human being. You get to know more than Joe Blow would consider because he's not taking into consideration the levels of manifestation and what comes along with what is physically manifest. You know, we usually don't go beyond what our natural mind considers. So even as an astrologer, you take into consideration that I'm in a year that the sun rules. The sun rules children. But as a human being, you have your own intention. You might want to select from the list of things that the sun gives indication to. You select for yourself what you prefer. But you have a destiny that you are not fully abreast of. And though the astrological chart will open the perspective that you're giving it, it doesn't give you a 360-degree in-depth perspective on everything that is going to be. If that was the case, if you could know that, you wouldn't even need astrology.
Yeah, it would be intuition.
Yeah.
So
Right. It's beyond intuition, okay? Because even throughout the history of mankind, our most intuitive, we call them prophetic, we call them inventive, and we call them life changers. They change the flow of history, right? They're history makers. See, but even they don't get to know it in prior to the experience as though they were watching a video. They don't get to know it to that extent. As intuitive as they are, right? Which one has laid it before us like a video? None of them. So even then, your scope is limited to your human capacity.
yes. So now we open the astrology box. What is astrology and what is it not?
It is the science of concurrences between celestial bodies and events here on Earth in a human or mundane capacity. Okay, that's roughly, period, what it is. It's the science of concurrences between those motions and these occurrences.
Yes.
In a nutshell.
And why does it work? I mean, there's like some bodies up there and
why it works, that I can't answer, man. That's like asking me, why does water freeze at 32 degrees? And why is fire? Because these things are supposed to be, okay? How it works, I can tell you. Why it works, I don't know. Why is 1 + 1 2? Why is 2 + 2 4? We know that this works. We don't know why it works. It works because this is how the law is supposed to manifest. How it works is that if you study metaphysically the nature of the universe, you understand, you come to realize by exposure that it is very mathematically, harmonically set. Geometrically, we can use geometry to measure the relationship between occurrences on or off the Earth, in space, and within our own environment. We study the geometric relationship between the motion of the planets, their timing, okay? And with fractals, let me explain. The orbit of Saturn is 29.5 years. Now, this is a grand average. It could be 28 years and it could be almost closer to 30 years. You understand? Because of the triangulation where the Earth is in the grand scheme of Saturn and the Sun dance. all right, where the Earth is in there, will determine whether the Saturn return is longer or shorter than 29 and a half years, but it's roughly 29 and a half. So with that orbit alone, there are things in the life cycles of the humanity that match and that orbit and that match fractals of that orbit. For example, 1/4 of that orbit is going to be approximately 7.5 years. We know that the growth rate of the human bone is goes in spurts, roughly every 7 to 8 years. So we can now measure the growth or evolution of one skeletal evolution was growth by the measure of Saturn, by breaking it into fractals of Saturn. Because the human growth, bone growth, is in 7 to 8 year spurts. So now because that matches, we can use this. And this is what astrology has been used to do for millennia. There are other life cycles that concur with the orbital patterns of the planets. For example, the woman's menstrual cycle, manifesting roughly every 29 and a half days. The moon has a synodic cycle, 29 and a half days, but it fluctuates from 28 to 29 and a half days. And so does the female menstrual cycle. So we can use the moon to gauge its progress, its evolution. And this is what we have done for years.
Yeah, until we had the anti-baby pills.
Even these things are given indication astrologically. There's truly nothing under the sun that is not given indication. The catch is that astrologers are ever learning. Astrologers are ever growing because we're people. So we don't get to know every single thing. The first year you study astrology, you find 5 years later, your skills with retrieving information regarding a specific subject can increase because now you know what to look for, you know?
Yes. I mean, I can see that for myself. I'm dabbling in it, and every time I come back to dabble a bit more, I find out more. Oh, there are houses. Oh, there's Pluto. Oh, there's Saturn and stuff like that. And like, oh, I didn't think of that. And when we talk, yeah, you came about relationships, you came about body parts. I'm like, what? That has to do with the planets, that has to do with the houses. But I want to just, out of curiosity, I have to ask you, if you would be a new color in a coloring box, what color would you be in that coloring box?
If I was going to pick a color, I'm going to pick pitch black.
Why?
Because, astrology, the color of astrology is going to be pitch black because black is this, every color comes out of the color black. And every science, metaphysical or mundane, comes from astrological science. So there goes my logic. Out of black comes every color that is in the universe, and out of astrology comes every science that is in our universe.
Yeah.
It is the oldest science on the planet Earth.
Yeah, the one we know of.
Yeah, that's right. So studying the sky as far back as we can go. So that's as far, what we don't know, we can't elaborate on, and it doesn't even matter. So as far as we know, as human beings, no time older than the keeping of time and the science of the sky, measuring the sky. This is the oldest science on Earth.
Yeah, I just listened to a podcast. They say time and astrology comes from Mesopotamia. Is that how you know it? Or
nah, man, I'm not going for that.
Okay. Yeah, just
mainstream history and mainstream European dominated history would have you to believe that it came out of Mesopotamia. Okay. But we have evidence of being global before civilization in Mesopotamia. We got remnants of it everywhere before we find it in Mesopotamia. What we find, what they're trying to attribute to Mesopotamia is genethliacal astrology. Okay? And what I mean by genethliacal, this is the word, the science of natal charts. They're trying to say that this came from Mesopotamia. They're also trying to claim that civilization came from Mesopotamia. But there are other factors that caused me to bring that into question, okay? Like, for example, corn.
Corn.
Okay? Simple as that. Corn, C-O-R-N. It was in Mesopotamia before any ziggurat was there. Okay? Corn comes from America. So I don't want to hear all that. All of the mountains and all of the earthworks here in America, bear in mind, if you go with mainstream, could not have been influenced by old world visitors because there was no people before Columbus, right? Suppose. So all of our earthworks are celestially set and celestially aligned. So I'm inclined to believe that we had astrological science in the Americas long before it was over there. Okay. So we had civilization over here before it was over there. By virtue of the fact that we invented the corn that they deified. So I'm not going for that idea that astrology started in Mesopotamia. They don't know where it started. Because what society was without stellar science? What society was without corn? With civilization preceded corn.
So, yeah, when you now open that up, I have here written down Aztec, Maya, Inca, Arabic, China, like in relation to astrology. Find it everywhere.
When you talk about Aztec, Inca, you're talking about timelines.
Yeah.
There were people like the Chinchorro that preceded the Aztec, the Olmec, the Maya. And these people used celestial science because of the lines that they left in the earth were all calendrical. So even these people had celestial science that preceded the ones you want to name. My purpose for mentioning it was to give light to the fact that celestial science is a global phenomenon. They don't know where it started. It's like trying to say where the first human being was born. Yeah, where? Okay?
Depending on the religion.
People want to claim different continents. The first man came from the east, the first man came from the... I don't want to hear. There's no proof for any of that. Okay? You don't even take into consideration that the map you're looking at land masses that are present today that weren't present 6,000 years ago. So you can't even begin to say where the birthland of the original man is at. You got seashell fossils half a mile of Mount Everest. If you're understanding what that means, all of India was underwater at one time. So you can't say that the civilization had to start there because there was a time when all of that was underwater. There was a time when Mesopotamia didn't exist. You're going to tell me because we don't have any artifacts that civilization couldn't have existed anywhere else. That is preposterous.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's preposterous. So, there's never a time in the history of man where man was not civilized, according to the definition of civil. And when you add other features onto the definition of civilized, like he must have writing, and he had to be religious, he had to have architecture, he had to build in stone. And when you start giving all of those, the first prerequisite to civilization is being civil. Okay.
Yeah, well, so we can discuss about our civilization then. Uh, Going back to the astrology part, now we went a little bit worldwide, right? Astrology has been everywhere, looking at all these different civilizations. We don't even know how far back it goes. And nowadays, we look at the astrology, as I know from Europe and US, I guess, is the Western tropical or whatever it's called astrology. And then we have the Ayurvedic astrology.
So you think it comes from Europe?
I was born and like my grandparents were born in Europe, but yeah.
Okay, let me tell you. Okay, Western astrology isn't Western because of what we deem to be Western modernly.
Yeah.
Western is anything east of India. I mean, anything west of India is Western astrological because you have Persian astrological, classical, you have Sumerian astrology, you have Babylonian astrology, and these things are considered classical, all right? And Western astrologers draw from them, right? So when we say Western here, we don't mean Western as in European. We mean Western as in west of India.
Okay, good.
Okay. Eastern would be Tibetan, Chinese, Indian, these Japanese forms of divination and or astrology, celestial science, right? So, but as far as tropical and sidereal, people are nowadays associating this with East and West, which is a big mistake.
Okay.
Because sidereal astrological science is used by Westerners and Easterners. It is an entirely different measure than tropical. You're using a totally different set of coordinates to create your zodiac when you're doing it sidereally than you are when you are doing it tropically. Okay? One depends on the tropos or the declinations of the sun, and which is the tropical, and the other depends on the relationship between, if you're using Vedic astrology, between the moon and the earth and the stars. All right? So one uses the earth and the sun, and the other one uses the moon and the stars. And then when you're using Western sidereal, you are using the relationship between the earth and the sun and the stars, as opposed to the earth and the sun and its highest declination and its equinoctial point.
Okay. And the Westerners, so to speak, using those two are still, what are we using it for? So if I'm saying, okay, I want to have like my astrology card, my birth chart read by someone like you, why would I do that? And why do people need an astrologer?
Good question, man. Well, they need an astrologer because they haven't studied the stars and their relation and the relationship of their motion. With, they need a specialist. It's like if you need surgery, you're not going to go to your neighbor and ask your neighbor to sew your heart up or sew your chest up. You're going to a doctor, to a specialist, man. So this is why you want to come to an astrologer. But why do you need, or why would you even, outside of why you're coming to me personally or an astrologer personally, why do you need the astrology? What you have to understand is we follow the idea. Firstly, you have to understand that there's an idea, as above, so below. If you don't subscribe to that, you don't need an astrologer. There's nothing that can make you believe it if you decide to disbelieve in it. You see what I'm saying? Nothing's going to convince you, right? And really, this is not a science of belief. This is a science of concurrences. You see? You have to see them yourself. And that's the purpose for coming to an astrologer, because I'm going to set up a schedule for you according to your birth time, your birth chart, that's going to show you why you need it or why you don't. It gives indications, all right? It's like an alarm clock. I'm going to give you an example. My wife went out of town a couple years back, 8 years back, all right? And she got stranded out of town. I sent her the money to get home. She didn't want to spend the money to get home. She didn't want to spend that. She wanted to write it out, the condition that she was in. And she's like, eventually we're going to get here. I needed to look at the chart to see when she was coming home, because now she's not coming home when she says she is. And to me, she's like, I don't know, it could be anywhere from 3 to 6 days, which to me was crucial because I'm at home with the newborn. So I look at my chart to see when she would be coming home. But I guess I was too emotionally involved in the fact that she was stranded to see it in my own chart. So I looked at the charts of the children. Okay. I got around to their charts a couple of days later. All right. And I was looking at the eldest boy chart. And I'm like, this can't be right, you know? And I had a friend of mine in the house with me, right? And he's like, what can't be right? I said, man, according to his chart, his mother should fucking be here. Right? And I'm pissed off because she ain't, right? So I look out the window and here she is, walking down the sidewalk. The driveway to our sidewalk to get to our house. And I'm like, how long have you been here? She said, well, I was out there talking for about 10 minutes. See, I hadn't looked out there. So why would I need astrology? Well, it gave me the answer I was looking for. This is what you need an astrology for. And if your astrologer can't give you the answer you're looking for, don't take it out on the science of astrology. You have novices, you have experts, and you have charlatans, you have dilettantes. So you need really to evaluate your astrologer and make sure he's truly an expert.
Oh, yeah. How to do that? How to know?
Well, I give people a 5-minute sample. So you can use that to determine whether I'm real or fake. I don't care which conclusion you come to after.
Okay, that's a good thing.
Yeah, but the astrologer should be able to give you something authentic that is you, that belongs to you, that nobody else that he could not have possibly known until he got your birth time. You see? This is how you know that he knows his shit, because he said something about you. He don't know you from Adam.
Yeah. So
he would have to be specific, wouldn't he? Like when I said to you, you have a mark on your back or your chest. You see?
Yeah.
How the fuck did I know that?
Somewhere here. I don't know if you can see that on the video.
See, but we had not seen each other.
No.
At all when I made that reading. You see? So the reason why is because you don't know what the chart says about you if you never got a reading, number one. And number two, it says everything about you. If the astrologer is versed in reading these things. See, because you have different types of astrologers, man. You have astrologers that specialize and only deal with the psychological indications of it. And therefore, when they're reading it from the psychological perspective. All right? Then you have astrologers that read it from the position of society and status, how it works professionally. And they key in on that. And you have astrologers that are well-rounded, that can do both. You understand? So you have all kinds of astrology, esoteric astrology. So people are going to read you spiritually. You have science, the medical astrology. So where people can diagnose your medical conditions simply from having your birth chart and knowing the time of the injury, they can prognosticate as to the nature of your healing process or whatever, what have you. So it depends on the field of study that they're applying the astrology to. And conversely, I don't know shit about racehorses, pardon my language. I don't know nothing about racing horses, right? So I cannot look at the astrology chart and analyze a horse race.
Oh, you can do that?
No.
Not you, but are the astrologers doing that?
You got astrologers out there faking. I don't know. Did you hear what I just said? You have to know the subject that you're applying your astrology to. Okay? Because he doesn't know whether he's reading an automobile, a horse, or a human being.
What I've heard is astrologers looking at countries, like the astrology for America, what is going on, especially now with all the things.
Yeah, this is called mundane astrology.
Okay.
It's a branch of genethliacal astrology because it still involves human beings and human actions, okay? But Joe, when you're looking at the astrology for a country, you're looking at the establishment of the country, the chart for the day that country was established. And you want, like hell, astrologers want the actual time of day to use for that chart. I'll give you some narrative on what happened to me. I was in a group on Facebook called Mundane Astrologer, so I hope this gives them some prestige. I was in this group back in 2009 when Egypt protested, rebelled, and ousted their own president, Hosni Mubarak. Okay. And when I have my own method of astrology, okay? So when I'm using a chart to read a nation, I want to go back and get a brief timeline of this country. And I want to compare the chronology given by the chart to the chronology given with regard to that country's history. And once I find it to be inconcurrent, then I'm going to start like a safe combination, like I'm trying to crack a safe combination. I'm going to start tilting that chart back and forth, trying to find the appropriate time of day, right? So I'm doing this, and I'm doing it publicly in this situation because it was a forum of astrologers, and we're all prognosticating and showing off. There's an astrologer in the past who is highly regarded. His name is Champion. Okay. And his name is spelled Champollion. Okay. But we know it's pronounced Champion. Champion, right?
Champion.
So, Champion, right.
Like the mushroom.
So, Champion, he had his own idea as to when that country actually began. All right. And I used, per my method, the time of birth that he submitted. And I'm looking back in the years. I'm looking back 50 years, which is 50 days of chart time. I'm scanning through 50 days to see if this time of birth concurs with the one that he was using. And I'm taking for granted that the start date of the country, the historical start date of the country is accurate. I mean, everybody agrees that on this day, they performed the coup and got rid of the government that preceded it. And then on that day, their government started when they made an announcement that they had taken the government. So now the big argument amongst all of us astrologers, where we did not concur, is the time of birth. Because per my method, using the time of birth that Champion submitted, it made everything 11 days off. And it wasn't just 11 days off for the one event. Everything was 11 days off. So I knew that all I had to do was change the time of birth by 44 minutes or so, and that it would align the chart up. So I did that, and I announced that I did that, which brought all kind of barrage of heat from all the other astrologers. Like, who the fuck are you to come in here and change and decide which is the right one? I said, I'm showing y'all, I can show you how it worked. And I did that, you see? And what was the purpose? Okay? To achieve a timing system for what was going to happen in the future. This is what I do. So at the last 10 days or so, to make sure that your chart lines up. If it doesn't, my expertise is finding the time that does line up. Once it does line up, and everything in the past looking backwards lines up, then we know it's going to line up moving forward. And we measure and I translate for you the dictation. This is what we did for the country of Egypt. And I was able to successfully, using that one method, to give 9 crucial events that would unfold over a 5-month period. One of them being the day the Hosni Mubarak was actually removed. This is what I do for people. Okay? If you can hear what I'm saying, your whole life was written when you were in your diaper shitting.
Before that.
Yeah, really, we find your life unfolding in your grandmother's chart. We can look at your grandmother's chart and find you. You understand? Find your children and things of this nature.
So now when you go there, is it like grandmother? I mean, I have like 2 grandmothers and 2 grandfathers.
It doesn't matter. You are a real person. You are a reality. You are an extension of your grandparents. Okay? The compartments in the chart show us the nature of events that are going to come from the people that these compartments describe. Okay? I'll give you an example. The 9th house in a chart. You have a chart with 12 compartments, right? The 9th one tells about your 3rd child, but it also tells about the 1st child of your 1st child. So if you have what we call a malefic there, Mars, Saturn, right? Then we can, with fair accuracy, foretell the nature of an event with regards to your grandchildren.
Oh my God. Wow.
Now, you know, so I can use your aunt's chart, provided I know that it's your aunt's chart, and provided that we have the right time of birth. Now I can use that to find her nephew, her 2nd nephew, her 3rd nephew, her 4th nephew, in the order of the, and I need y'all to tell me what order they were born in. Are you the 1st nephew or the 2nd? Does she have a nephew older than you? Or a niece older than you? So we need those details, but once we have those details, I can read your 2nd child, your 3rd child, your 4th child, your 5th child, you know, your 6th child, your 7th child. And what people don't realize is even miscarried babies count and aborted babies count. You know, some people think that, oh, that child wasn't even born, so it wasn't even a child. My thing is, it counts. It was a child. You weren't pregnant with a kitty cat. You were pregnant with a human being. You know, you lost a child, but it was still a child. You see? So these things are shown in the birth chart. And people want to know what their children are going to be like. I wanted to know what my kids were going to be like, you know. So I was able to use astrology to get a fair description of my children, a fair description of when I should have them and when I shouldn't.
Yeah, but exactly that. You told me like we had a unborn child and that kind of didn't really get it in the first. But yeah, it was in between my 2 children. We had a miscarriage. So, and I misunderstood you in the beginning. And then when you said like, oh shit, I completely forgot. But yeah.
Well, the thing is, I couldn't say it uncouthly. I had to say it with couth because it's a sensitive matter. And a lot of people put that experience out of their mind. But if they have children and they want me to read them, I'm going to need to know how many kids they got. Yeah. And I'm going to need to know if they want information regarding their children from the birth chart. I'm going to need to know which child you're asking about. Okay. Outside of that, I can give you solely what the chart says, you know.
Yeah. So, but that was one of the things that I was surprised. The other was the mark. The next one was the color. That's why I asked you about the color, because you told me like my preferences in colors. Besides the yellow, everything was right. The brownish, earthy colors, dark. And all the cars I bought, I was thinking, like all the cars I bought are gray or black. As you said, like black.
Well, we were going on the premise that you're a Taurus rising.
I don't know if you have the chart of me up there or you just have it.
I'm going to pull it up. I don't have it up right this moment, but I will pull it up again through the course of this conversation.
Yeah.
Because you told me you had a Taurus rising. I know that Taurus in the first house is Capricorn on the ninth, which means that you like neutral colors for a car or a horse. If we were in the 1600s, you'd want a black horse or a gray horse. If we were in India at 300 BC, you'd want a black elephant or a gray elephant. You understand? So the color that you are programmed to like is right there. A lot of people, because they don't look outside of their own mind. All right. And this is what the modern education, since the Dark Ages, really wants you to be. They want you to stay within the own confines of your own mind so that you're easily manipulated and easily controlled and easily moved, contained, and what have you. I suppose if everyone on the planet studied celestial science, then a lot of the counselors would be out of a job. The church would become automatically defunct. Well, what's the use? We already know what's in store. We already know how we should go about things. We don't need a priest. We don't need an advisor or a counselor. And so a lot of the economy is built on the ignorance of people. Astrology is a vehicle for self-knowledge and for knowledge of anything that you can apply it to.
Yeah, so when you mentioned that, how is the political world? Are they using astrologers and stuff like that?
I'm sure they are, and if they aren't, the protocol is astrological. So the protocol is absolutely astrological. So whether they are following the astrology intentionally or simply by virtue of the fact that they're following the protocol. Okay, I can demonstrate how the protocol is astrological. Okay, I'm sure that they use common law in the country that you're in.
Yeah, I guess so.
Okay. Well, in a common law situation, they're using maritime law, using the law of the high seas.
Oh yeah, you go with the bank and the currency.
So listen. When you're born, they attach a trust to your birth certificate. This is how they're able to fine you and penalize you and tax you and all this other stuff. In a common law country, I'm sure this is how it works. Okay. So the moon, there is a planetary order, classical planetary order in astrology. And we line up the planets according to their speed. And it is called the Chaldean order. And we line them up from slow to fast. And this is the Chaldean order. Well, when you go to court, they reverse this order and they perform a magi spell through protocol, whether the judge is versed in astrology or not. Because the courtroom is a ship at dry dock and it is representative of the moon. And this is where you start with the fastest planetary body. The first thing they want you to do when you go into the courtroom is put your name on the record. Okay? Well, the next planet in succession, in speed, is the planet Mercury, which is the planet of names and communication and signatures. The next thing they inform you of is that you are in a courtroom and they want to establish jurisdiction. And Venus is the next planet after Mercury. Okay? They want you to contract with them. Venus. You see, the whole protocol, the whole method is set up on this astrological symbolism. Now, once Venus is also the planet of possession. So what they're striving for is possession. Possession of what? The next planet is the sun. And the sun is the sovereign of our solar system. What they want to possess is your sovereignty. You see? Then after the sun comes Mars, and Mars is policy and police. So they use the police and the policy to enforce this ownership of your sovereignty. Jupiter comes next. Jupiter represents law. So you have these enforcers, Mars, of the law, Jupiter, which is designed. Jupiter has to deals with symbolically, it gives indication to taking things for granted, taking advantage of things, right? And overwhelming circumstances and things of this nature. So the next planet is they overwhelm you with all this law, right?
Yes.
And orient you, okay, to Saturn, the next planet, to deprive you. Saturn is a planet of regulation, deprivation, punishment, penal. It deals with all of that. To deprive you of what? The next planet, which is Uranus, the planet of freedom. To deprive you of your freedom, your liberty. Uranus, unbeknownst to you, Neptune, the next planet, for the energy of your wealth, which is Pluto. Okay, so yes, they use astrology. Now, does the judge who's enforcing this protocol and process, does he know his astrological? If he's a high mason and the lodge that he goes to teaches astrological symbolism, he may. But for the most part, I don't even think they see the astrology in it.
Wow, you blow my mind again. An application I haven't seen. So when you start dabbling into astrology, you know, your sign, I'm Aries. So I know my sign is Aries. I think it's called sun rising. Ascendant is Taurus. And I know my moon is in Gemini.
The whole chart is you.
Yeah. But in the beginning, right, when you start.
No. See, that's the problem. Yeah, that's miseducation in the first fucking place. Okay? The miseducation in the first place is you being allowed to say, I'm an Aries. How are you an Aries? Aries is 30 degrees of the sky, my man. It is a section of the sky. It has 30 degrees in it, okay? It does not have eyeballs, legs, fingers, organs, a brain, ears. So how are you Aries? See, it's already a misconception using the sign that the sun was in when you were born as an identity.
Yeah.
When all 12 of the signs in the sky are equally you, not just the one that the sun is in, not just the one that is rising when you were born. You see, your elbow is just as much you as your ear is. Your knees are just as much you as your shoulders are. So when you say I'm an Aries, you're only pointing to one feature in your chart. So that's like saying I am my middle finger. That this part of me over here ain't me. You know, the Taurus, the Gemini, the Cancer, none of that. My head, my shoulder, my arm, my elbow, none of that is me. Just this part right here. See, that's what people are doing when they say I'm a Leo. I'm a Scorpio. I'm a Taurus. You are none of them things. You are made in the image of the Most High. Or if you believe that, you are a human being. Okay? These things are sections of a chart. Geometrical slices of the sky are what Aries, Taurus are. They are not identities, first of all, in any way. So when you say in the beginning, no, in the beginning, people have preconceived notions. And these things need to be done away with. Because this is the reason for the unsound astrological goings on. You know, it's so unsound because people are not founding it in its true roots. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know the listeners how much they get from what you just said. So
I'm pretty sure there's going to be some astrologers out there that are drawn to this podcast.
So there's like the 12 signs and there's the 12 houses. And so are there then 12 planets, or how many planets are we then normally looking at? I know there's like this extended and whatever, minor planets and main planets.
Okay, we use terminology planets. We're talking about heavenly bodies, period. So counting the sun and the moon, which some traditions call them luminaries, don't call them planets. Okay. But in modern Western astrology, the sun and the moon are called planets as well. Okay, so we use 10 planets. And that's the sun, the moon, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, Saturn. We use the calculated points, all right? Where the path of the moon overlaps the path of the sun. These are the nodes, the lunar nodes. And we use solar nodes too. People don't know 0 degrees Aries in the tropical zodiac is the solar node. Okay, that's the sun's node. You know, the signs and the houses are each 2 different wheels, inter-overlapping wheels. Okay, the system I use, the houses are all 30 degrees and the signs are all 30 degrees. Okay, but you have different house systems that make the houses a variable width. All right.
Yeah, I've seen that.
And yeah, I don't use those. You know, I've been a practitioner of this science for more than 40 years. Okay. I have experimented with all of those other systems and I don't condemn them. Okay. If that's what you want to use, have at it. Okay. My system of prediction doesn't allow me to use an unequal house system. It falls apart with an unequal house system. You know, I have all kinds of logic to support the argument for equal houses as opposed to unequal houses, but that's unimportant. You know, it's irrelevant. I just tell you what system I use and that should be enough, right?
Yeah.
You know, but this is for the astrologers out there. I'm a predictive astrologer. I am more focused on describing a person's environment on a specific day than I am concerned at all about what their mindset is going to be. You see, you know, how you feel about it is your business. You know, I'm not trying to predict it. I'm trying to successfully predict whether it's going to rain or not. So you can decide whether you need to take an umbrella or not. Whether you pissed off or happy about the rain is never my concern. Okay, you want to know, is the 15th a good day for me to throw this event? Is it going to be lucrative? So I'm going to look at the 15th and answer that question. Well, and your feelings about that have nothing to do with it, right? But you have astrologers that are doing a different type of astrology and applying predictive science to maybe your mood. Okay, I'm not dealing with that. I'm dealing with your environment, what you're going to be dealing with, and where you're going to be and what you're going to be confronted with. You know, this is what I want to convey. Is it going to be an easy day for economics, or is it challenging for economics?
Yeah. I forgot to ask you in the beginning because you overruled me a little bit with all the information. The reason that you started the whole astrology path you took for 40 plus years now was for prediction, or just in the beginning curiosity and learning?
No, in the beginning, man, it was a fascination because I was a child and I was given an astrology book that was pretty basic. I mean, I could understand it. I was 9 years old. I knew how to when I was born and what section to read because of the day that I was born. And it did describe me. It described me as a child, even with those personality traits. So this is what caused the fascination. But it wasn't immediate. What my grandmother did was every time she had an opportunity to buy me something, which was like 2 or 3 times a year, she would throw an astrology book in there. You see? So the first couple of books I had, I didn't even read thoroughly. But I remembered when I was 14 years old, I remembered that this astrology book described me. Okay? And to be bluntly honest, there was no grand scheme for learning. The girls liked it.
The girls, of course.
Yeah, it's easy to get the attention of girls in school and throughout my teens and my adulthood. with the astrology. They're generally very interested in it. I have 75% of my clients are women.
Still.
I mean, women generally, I guess because of the patriarchy, women find it a way more fascination than men do. But most of my students are male.
Reading for women and learning for men.
Yeah, right. But, I don't genderize. Sun, moon, and stars, your intellect knows no gender. When a woman looks at this pen, she sees a red pen just like you do. Okay? If a woman is watching this podcast, she sees me in a black shirt. She sees you in a red shirt. You're not wearing a green shirt. This shirt doesn't appear yellow to her. You understand? So in that regard, I don't genderize. Intellectual prowess has no gender. All right? But it's good to know the gender of the person that you're reading when you're reading it. Okay? Because a woman is going to express their energy far differently than a man would. So when I got to be 15 or 16 and the urge to attract women really got serious, right? I started studying it more. Because the better I am, the more I had to say and the more attention I was going to get from the people I'm pursuing, right? Then I wanted to learn more and learn more and learn more. So I came into some books that talked about predictive astrology. And at that point, I'm super intrigued. So what do you mean I can predict what with this? So I started studying those books. I started to apply the techniques that I was learning. And in the process, I learned how to predict. I learned the algorithm required for prediction, right? And I was applying it to my family members experimentally. And when I started to get consistent observation with motion in the chart, I'm now convinced that I can predict, the nature of an event or the nature of a day or a specific period of time for an individual. That was a point of enlightenment. When I was finally able to do that, it made me take this science much more seriously. It made me look at it with a higher regard. Because the entire time I'm studying the astrology, my cousins would come to me and my friends growing up that I grew up with, and they would be like, read this for me, man. Read this girl for me. Read this, read this, read this. I didn't really take it seriously until I learned how to predict. Once I learned how to predict with it, I started to take it very seriously. So I no longer use it as a social tool, okay? I use it to feed my family now. And to help the people that come to me understand the nature of their life processes and where they really come from a universal standpoint.
Okay, so you look also where they come from and where they go to. Yeah, you told me it was around the age of 30 when you really went into this profession.
Well, that's when I started teaching and I started doing it professionally. Around the age, I was actually 31 years old. Okay, it was in the summer of my 31st year when I started working for the Psychic Network, with Miss Cleo as the spokesperson. I used to work for that Psychic Network. Okay. And I was using astrology to do that work. Consequently, it gave me the opportunity to hone my skills and to, I have access to like 60 people a day. Yeah. So because I had access to that many people and I'm reading that many people and I had to keep track of all my calls, I was also expanding my knowledge, my astrological base. And that's where I got the real opportunity to see it repetitiously day to day. See, the average person, even the student that comes to me today, he doesn't have access to 60 people, 60 subjects, But because I was working in a capacity, I was employed. And, it's what I do every day for more than 8 hours every day. People are calling for this kind of stuff. Where the average student who gets with me, he has to use his friends, his family, his children, his cousins, his co-workers, and they still aren't as numerous as he would like them to be. You have to go to Wikipedia and study things like, I wanted to know what was behind the assassination, what was the indication astrologically for the assassination of Malcolm X and Martin Luther King. All right. So when I found both of them had Mars, which means violent, and Pluto within 30 degrees of one another, which means that they're linked, they're aligned, right? That Pluto is the planet of death. Mars is the planet of violence. The violent death is in their birth charts. So I said, I want to see how many other people. So I went to Wikipedia. This is like 2001, right? 2002, maybe 2003. I don't know. Okay. Between 2001 and 2003, right? I went to Wikipedia and I put in there assassinated political figureheads in the 20th century. It gave me 1 million entries, okay, for assassinated political figureheads all over the world. So that was too many. I condensed the list to American figureheads that were, because I'm an American, so I just condensed it to the American. And in doing this study, I learned what the chief indicators were for assassination. Other astrologers have done many tests like this. The Magi Society found the alignment for super wealth, okay? So we're able to, from that research, look at a person's chart and tell them when they're in a position to gain or capitalize off of super wealth, if it's in their chart at all.
Yeah. So, yeah. I was also wondering, now we went down the path where you came from, why you started actually astrology, as I wanted to ask you in the beginning. And we were just at the planets, and you said there are 10 planets, but there are 12 houses and 12 signs.
Yeah, well, some of the planets rule more than one sign. All of the planets rule more than one in my discipline. All of them, even the sun and the moon. The sun also rules the moon's house, is the sub-ruler of the moon's house, and the moon is the sub-ruler of the sun's house in my logic. But in classical traditional astrology, the sun and the moon rule Leo and Cancer. The sun rules Leo, the moon rules Cancer. Mercury rules both, Gemini and Virgo. Okay? Venus rules both, Taurus and Libra. Mars rules both, Scorpio and Aries. Okay? Jupiter rules both, Pisces and Sagittarius. And Saturn rules both, Aquarius and Capricorn. See? And when we say ruler here, we're not thinking ruler, king on a chair with a scepter, dictating orders, okay? We're thinking ruler as in a metric stick, a meter stick, the ruler, 12 inches, foot,
yes,
okay?
yes.
The ruler for this sign and what it represents is the planet and its geometric relationship to another planet as well as its spatial motion. So this planet is the means by which to measure that reality. You see? Just like you use a ruler to measure this object.
Yes. Wow. With you, I learned so many things about astrology. So it's several aspects. And listening to you, so these planets, are they related to body parts? Are they related to relationships? Are they related to personal traits?
All of that. All of that.
Okay, all of that.
We understand by natural experience here on this planet, if you're an adult watching this podcast, you can, without any explanation, see the relationship between all of these items, which I am about to convey to you. You can see how they all fit in the same category. The color red, flame of fire, heat, competition, anger, frustration, annoyance, irritation, war, conflict, competition, sports, athleticism, militarism, soldiers, soldiering. Anybody that works with fire or metal or emergency workers, firemen, police, soldiers, like I said. You see how all of these things go together?
So that's one planet, one house, one...
That's about 20 different examples of what Mars gives indication to. Mars also rules the head, the brain. It gives indication to. When we say rules, put in parentheses, it gives indication to. So Mars gives indication to the head, to the face, to the scalp, to the brain, to the blood, to all of the red blood cells in the body. It gives indication to action as opposed to inaction, to reflex, to response. It gives indication to things that happen very quickly, things that happen impulsively, things that you need reflex and impulse to respond to. So that's a million things right there all by itself, okay? But Mars points to these things, and so does the sign of Aries.
And that's in the first house normally.
Well, no, not normally. Traditionally, Aries is indicative and shares features with the first house. But every sign normally is constantly shifting through the houses, and every sign spends 2 hours approximately in every house throughout the course of every day. So there is attributions of the first house, but is Aries normally in the first place? No. Every sign 2 hours in the first place on the equation, okay? So every sign normally hits the first house for about 2 hours, and it normally hits the 12th house for about 2 hours, and normally hits the 11th house for 2 hours, and so on. It is never static. It is constantly moving. The earth is constantly spinning. The sky appears to constantly be moving. So there's no, the association with the first house is normal, but it's not always in the first house normally. No. See? You have Aries in the 12th place. So it is normal for 12th place. It is normal for Cancer rising to have Aries in the 10th place, in the 10th house. It is normal for Capricorn rising to have it in the 4th house. And every one of those signs are born every day. Capricorn rising, Cancer rising, these things happen every single day.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm Aries rising Taurus, but if I would be born later, it would be then Cancer, and later whatever Gemini. Etc.
Depends on how much later, right? Yeah. 4 hours after Taurus, Cancer rises, okay? 10 hours after Taurus rises, Virgo rises. So it depends on how long after, you see? This is why the time of birth is important, because number one, the time of birth gives us the degree of the first house. Okay? It gives us the degree. That's what we want. Okay? Because the sign itself is 30 degrees. And each one of those degrees can represent anywhere from 1 day to 1 year, or maybe even seven days or 7 years.
Okay.
Because we're dealing with a fractal science here. Okay? So, like, for example, if 1 day equals 1 year, then 1 degree can also equal 1 day. Well, if the time of birth you gave me makes it 4 degrees off, which is about 20 minutes, then I'm going to be 4 days off with my prediction. So I'm going to need to gauge it before I even give you a prediction. We're going to look at the last week or so, last 2 weeks maybe, of your life to see if the last motions you have line up with what you perceive. And if it does, then we don't need to change the time of birth at all. If it doesn't line up, then I'm going to see how many days off it is. When I say to you, yo, last Friday, some tension between you and a coworker or one of your coworkers had an emergency, and you're like, oh, no, that wasn't Friday, that was Wednesday. Well, that lets me know right there The time of birth you gave me needs some adjustment because you got me 2 days off. You got me 2 degrees here. And I can see the difference between Tuesday and Wednesday or Monday and Wednesday. So I'll know automatically how many minutes by which to make the adjustment. After that, we'll look at it again. We'll get 3 hits that show that it lines up perfectly according to what you perceive. Then it's going to do that moving forward. And this is when I give you a comprehensive predictive schedule.
Wow, but that shows how precise that work is. It's not just, it's like, yeah, I'm born around whatever 6:30.
Yeah, well, that around is good because really nobody knows what time precisely they were born. We know what time the nurse or the doctor said you came out.
Yeah,
we know that. That's an excellent place to stop. See, so, I use the time of birth that a person tells me until I see that it is not conveying accurate measure. Then I seek to correct the measure so that I can give you something tangible, something you can hold on to, something you're going to come back for.
When we talked last week, you shared with me an experience with a girlfriend you had looking at hour by hour through the day on her chart. I was like, what? You can look at the chart through the day and predict kind of the energy, what will happen.
Each one of the planets is a hand on a clock. We look at a watch and we see 3. We see the second hand, we see the minute hand, we see the hour hand. Okay, these are classical watches. I'm not talking about digital watches.
But that's mechanical,
right? But you get with the 3 fingers, right? Well, the astrological chart has 10 hands. And the angle relationship between the hands will determine whether it goes ding and bling for you, okay? Because it's a gigantic clock, really. Okay? And to give you an example, all right? Kobe Bryant, you familiar with this character?
Yeah, I played basketball, so yes.
He was a professional basketball player, for those of you out there who don't know, who died in a tragic
helicopter
fall. Helicopter that crashed. He died in that crash, okay? So I'm looking at the chart for his death. I'm looking at his birth chart, all right? On the day that Kobe died, he was exactly 41 years, 157 days, and some hours. Okay? You got to take that figure and hold that figure in your head. Don't lose that figure. 41 years, 157 days, and some hours, which means he died in the 158th day after his 41st birthday. Okay? Now, the planet of death in astrology is Pluto. The planet of falling in astrology or crashing is Saturn. Kobe Bryant had a geometrical measure between Pluto and Saturn to the amount of 41 degrees, 26 minutes, and 13 seconds of arc. This is how far apart they were. When you convert those degrees into years, it computes exactly how old he was when he died of a fall.
Oh my God. Incredible.
But don't call me asking me to find out how old you're going to be when you die, because I charge $1 billion for that. I charge $1 billion for that question. If that question ever enters the conversation, you want me to seriously answer it, I'm seriously going to need $1 billion, an American, okay? Because I do death out of curiosity. I don't do death out of your curiosity. Okay? I have predicted deaths accidentally. And I only do it accidentally. I mean, if you call me, if you're a client of mine, right? You call me for a reading, and you say to me, I'm going to get in an airplane on the 15th. Me and my wife are going to fly all the way across the world. We're getting on a plane on the 15th. Well, if I see Mars and Pluto conjunct squaring the sun on that day, I'm going to ask you not to travel because it looks like your life is in danger. But there will be no way that I'm going to say to you, oh, you're definitely going to die on this day, dude, if you go. There's no way I can do that and be honest. Because you have a Pluto every month. Does that mean somebody dies every month? No. So you can't always look at the planet of death as death because it isn't always death.
It's like death in the sense of other things as well.
The planet of death is identical to the planet of sex.
And how is that to be understood?
Because both death and sex are high life vibrational movements. Okay? It's life transference, both of them. Both of them consist of a transference of life, and really that's what Pluto represents. It doesn't represent death alone. It represents the transference of life, death being just one of millions of forms of life transference.
Yeah, I mean, also about death, I heard also others speak about Pluto being death of like a marriage or an identity, like a job.
It represents death. It represents death in any semantic application you can conceive. Okay? So what do I mean by that? A murder looks just like a surgery. And a surgery looks just like a lottery win. See, because we look at a lottery win as something highly desirable. I'd love to hit the lotto, wouldn't you? Wouldn't you just love to hit the lotto? Yeah. Everybody would just fucking love that. And to die, we don't love that. To be in a car accident, we don't love that. So we can't see how all three of them, the car accident, the death, and the lottery win, are exactly the same thing. They are all permanent life changers. See, the chart says permanent life transformation. It doesn't say death. It doesn't say lottery win. It says permanent life transformation.
Something big is coming for you.
Yeah, one way or the other, better or worse. This is how an honest astrologer is going to address it. Okay. Now there are certain patterns. Like, okay, I had a client. The birth chart itself represents the ultimate pattern. So what it suggests plays out over the course of your life. So throughout any predictive chart you pull out, you're going to see the natal chart coming true. I had a client who was born with the sun straddled by Pluto and Mars. Okay? They were very close to her sun. The Pluto was 1 degree from her sun in front of the sun, and Mars is 1 degree in the back. So to me, like I told you earlier, Pluto means death. It also means other things. But in the extremist, most pessimistic delineation I'm going to give it is that can mean death right there, okay? And with Mars there, it talks about violence, right? But I don't know if it says violent death or if it says this person gets wounded by something very hot, because they can get a permanent scar, which is Pluto, and be burned, Mars, the cause of the scar. So I'm telling this girl this. She's 24 years old at the time. I'm telling her this. And she's like, well, what's the big deal? I said, well, in its worst, it looks like you could die a violent death. Or someone would subject you to some serious violence. So if I were you, I would do this and I wouldn't do that. 6 years went by. I had the occasion to speak to her about that again because I saw that it was imminent. And when I told her about it, she was like, well, do you see me dying? I said, no, I can't tell. What I told you is it looks like a life and death situation. And I didn't say I see you dying. But guess what happened to the girl? She got shot in the head twice.
Oh.
And she lived.
What?
Yeah, she lived. She has a glass eye and a steel cap in her skull. Right, a steel plate in her skull. But she's alive. And what she said to me was, do you see me dying? I said, I can't say whether it's gonna kill you or not. It just looks to me like a life and death situation. So if I were you, I'd play it safe, better safe than sorry, you know. And the guy that shot her shot himself afterwards. She survived. She was in a coma for months, okay? So my thing is, these things can cause panic, you know, and if you're really good at your astrology, you're right a lot, okay? So you don't want to be right about some shit like that. You don't want to tell your client, look, man, it looks like Wednesday, like your life is in danger, you know? I would confess it if I felt that it was probable. But, you know, you can't jump to the conclusion. A lot of it is safe speculation. You're looking at patterns. What has that alignment been for this person? What has it been for this person your entire life? Like, for example, you have Mars here, you have Pluto there. I can read to you what they mean. And then we can talk about how often and what form these things have taken as a pattern in your life. You see? So once we see the pattern, you're going to see the pattern. You see the patterns in your life. We can just we find out which one that is, and we can show you how it re-emerges on a monthly basis. And then you can begin to recognize it, and you can begin to deal with it consciously, as opposed to, damn, this happens to me every fucking month. I'm in a situation like this every month. Well, now you can time it, and you can prepare yourself to deal with it without the frustration or being surprised by it, you see? And you can take advantage of your better periods.
Yeah, I mean, I was thinking of personal growth, spiritual growth, self-finding. Is this kind
all of that is in the chart. You have to understand that the planets don't just speak to the material plane. They speak to the emotional plane. They speak to the social aspect. They speak to the financial aspect. They speak to the personal. They speak to the familial. They speak to the romantic. They speak to the business. They speak to the education. They speak to the service. So, like, what do I mean by that? Mars in service is like military. That's a cook. It's a welder. Mars, personally, it's frustration or focus. It's strength. It's impulse. On a social level, it's competition. Friendly or hostile. Doesn't make a difference. Competition is what it is. Scientifically, it is fire. It is heat. It is sharp. When it comes to tools, it is used for burning or cutting. So Mars, in terms of occupation, speaks to police, soldiers, athletes, firemen, emergency workers, blood givers, iron workers, welders, cooks. So when you talk about a planet, it ain't just one thing. It's an ideogram. It talks to 1,000 things, but it talks to 1,000 specific things. Mars does not talk about anything that Jupiter talks about. Jupiter does not talk about anything that Mars talks to point his indication to. See, Jupiter is a preacher. Mars is a surgeon. You can't get those confused.
No, what you said, like, there's like the two aspects. One is like the negative, another one is a positive aspect. Being in Mars, let's say Mars crosses you, whatever, your birth chart. And that's another question.
Mars is always both negative and positive.
Like everything.
Fire always burns, and you can always utilize it for something constructive.
Yes.
But fire is always destructive. Even if you're doing something with it constructive, fire is never not destructive, right? But you can do constructive things with it. So we would like to say it's both. I personally don't draw the line between good and bad, positive and negative. We don't know enough to define a thing as positive or negative. It just is, okay? If it's positive or negative to you, that's your business. But you can't really say with all definite fact that it is absolutely negative or absolutely positive.
Yeah, exactly. That's depending on what point of view you have.
I mean, because you say, hey, this guy won $1 million. And that's a good thing. Well, not if he's a drug addict.
Yes.
Right? Because he might OD tomorrow now because he got all this money. Well, he didn't have the opportunity to do that before. So it's not a good thing that he has all of that. See, so we can't really say without a knowledge of the entirety. And who has a knowledge of the entirety? I mean, that's just my personal stab at the my personal assault on it.
I agree on that. What I meant more is like when a person gets a reading about these things, that you might have like a difficult time coming ahead, a month, a year, whatever, then you can mentally prepare and use that to transform, where you either are,
if it's your destiny to transform it, you can.
Okay, even if you're conscious about it and it's not your destiny, then you might still be irritated.
See, because you all, who do I mean by that? People who don't consider this aspect of life. Y'all don't consider it. So it's too much for you to accept. You don't write your own life. Okay? You don't get to say, oh, I'm having a Jupiter tomorrow. I'm gonna make that $1 million. Okay? I don't get to decide what that Jupiter's gonna be, and I don't care what you believe. You got 1 million believers out there that can't show you shit, but they can tell you what they believe all day. You believe because you know you're having a Mars tomorrow, that you can turn that Mars into whatever you want it to be. And you got astrologers out here that promote that bullshit. This is my example. So then if Malcolm X's daughter at the age of 4 knew that her father was going to get killed on that day, she could have stopped it, huh? When his chart said he was going to get killed, when his mother's chart said he was going to get killed, okay? So his little 4-year-old daughter, his wife, could have stopped it. His wife, if she knew that he was having a Mars that day, he wouldn't have got killed. That's what you're saying. That's not what happened, though, is it?
No, I didn't mean it that way. I meant it more emotionally to transform.
Even then, because watch. Okay, just recently, 4 days ago, because I'm answering you honestly, and I don't want there to be any misgiving about the reality it is. Okay? I'm reading a woman about 4 months ago. And I know that the sign of Cancer, people who have the sun and people who have the ascendant in Cancer, the 90% of these people experience the loss of their first child. In some way, whether the child is aborted, miscarried, murdered, born or not, they lose this child before they die, right? So this woman, she's talking to me. She's just running her mouth. And she said, well, my oldest boy, and because I know that Cancers lose their first child, I said to her, is he your eldest child or is he another child from another pregnancy? And she said, he's my oldest. So I know she has the planet and the sign of death there, right? And she has another malefic there that contributes more to the idea that it would be death or injury than it would be a lottery win or a car accident, right? So I said to her, I'm surprised he's still alive. That's quite remarkable. I said, but according to your chart here, he's having a very bad year. And she said, no, he's not having a bad year. My son just got a job as an engineer and he's making buku money. He's happy as hell. I said, well, you might want to call him and find out. And I did not see what happened what came the next day. I didn't see it. I saw the tragedy of it in her chart. So the next day she calls me and she says, what did you see about my son? And I says, I told you what I saw. I saw that he was having a very bad year, and I advised you to call him to check on him. She said, well, he shot himself this morning.
Oh my God.
So my point is, she knew and didn't call him, right? Do you think if she called him, he wouldn't have did it? But it shows up in the charts of his wife and his other family members that he was going to die. So my point in the matter is, you can try, that's the whole purpose of knowing this shit, to make it into what you want. Don't be disappointed when it doesn't work, when you have to do it month after month, when you have to try it 4 or 5 times before you succeed.
Yeah, I totally get that. I've also had an interview of a woman that saw death of other people and tried to help them, and it never worked. They
no, it
died
never does.
anyway.
I have tried to help these people. They didn't know we die anyway. But I realized that you shouldn't toy with death, and because here goes another example. I can only point to my experience, right? One of my students was monitoring his father-in-law because his father-in-law had heart surgery. Well, a few months after the heart surgery, Pluto and the sun, Pluto in Scorpio rose, and the sun in Leo, the sun in Scorpio rose, and Pluto in Leo rolled over the midheaven. And what he asked me was, he said, yo, he just left here in an ambulance. He was smoking, and the cough made his chest bust open, and there's blood all over my fucking floor. I'm cleaning up all this blood. Is he gonna live? I said, no. He's gonna die, because Pluto, the planet of death, the sun, which is the planet of life, was in the sign of death at the ascendant, which is important, right? Which is heavy. And the sign of life with the planet of death was in it. So you had life and death twice on what we call the angles in the chart, on the midheaven and the ascendant. Like, yeah, he's going to die. This time he's gone. Well, guess what happened? He did die, so they say, for about 5 or 10 minutes. And they resuscitated him. Okay, Pluto also resuscitation. And because I didn't give it that consideration, I didn't consider the idea that they might resurrect, they might resuscitate this cat, because Pluto is revivification and resuscitation and regeneration, that it equally equals resuscitation as much as it equals death, right? So that's what happened. He did die, but they revived him, and he's still alive now. At that experience there, I said to myself, yeah, the astrologer doesn't really know for certain, so he should never say for certain.
Yeah, but these things make you wiser, like compared to when you were 25, 30, when you have the feeling you know it all.
Oh, yeah. I get to see things unfold that I don't have the opportunity to talk about. Like, for example, the last time they made an attempt on Donald Trump's life, I said, yo, when Mars reaches the 9th cusp in his hometown, if he was at home, I would say that he's susceptible to danger. But because I don't know where he's going to be, I can't make that assertion. Well, it did work out that way, that his location put Mars directly on the cusp, and then somebody tried to kill him on that day. I did not feel safe saying, oh, he's going to get killed today. I just said that when Mars is here, it is an indication that his life can be in danger. And that depends on his location. So it did work out that somebody tried his life. Somebody tried an attempt on his life. When I went to California, which is not New York, to look at the chart, it lined up perfectly for the assault or for the attempt on his life. As an astrologer, I could not tell whether he was going to live or die. I just knew he was having a Mars, which could be life and death.
Yeah.
And I said this on my page on Instagram. So it's not like I'm just making this shit up. I said it very clearly because I was looking at the chart to give a prediction about him. And then it happened. So the point in the matter is that your whole life is giving indication. You are a personification of the universe at the moment that you came into it. It embodied you, and you embodied it. The form that it was in, it's constantly changing. The planets are constantly moving, and the chart is constantly taking a new shape. Well, consequently to your birth chart, as the sky unfolds, so does your life. And your life unfolds as the universe unfolds, because you are the universe. We are the universe in all of its diversity. Okay? And literally so. Okay? Let me show you. I'm going to show it to demonstrate it for the audience. The planet Mars, as we were discussing earlier, I told you it represents fire. It represents sharp object. Okay? So where it is in the birth chart gives us indication where in the course of your life you're going to come into contact with a hot or sharp object. You have Mars in Leo. The signs of the zodiac also represent certain parts of the body. Leo represents the pectoral muscles, your chest. And it represents your upper back, your latissimus dorsi. Okay? So as the astrologer, I know the most common manifestation for Mars is a scratch, a scrape, a cut, or a permanent mark made with a sharp or hot object.
Yeah, it was a scalpel.
I know that. I know it also represents fevers, though. A fever.
Okay.
See, so you could have a fever there and it never leave a mark. You know, I had a fever in my chest, an infection in the skin or in the muscle or whatever, inflammation in the muscle that's in the chest. But at any rate, I'm going for the most tangible results because as an astrologer, I don't know for certain exactly how Mars manifested itself. I just know that it takes the form of sharp instruments, metal, heat, accidents, conflicts, things of this nature. But usually it leaves a physical mark on the body 9 times out of 10, 90% of the time. Let me say it again, 9 times out of 10, all right? There's that one chance that something keeps that from manifesting. There's no absolutes here, right? But anyway, 9 times out of 10, you have a mark on your chest. Right? See, I could not say whether that mark came from you scratched yourself, so your sister stabbed you with a pair of scissors, you fell off your bike and landed on the ground and left a mark. Just know that it happened, you see? So this is what astrology is for. It's for personal growth because you, when I said to you, you have a mark on your chest or your back, you knew exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah.
See? So thus, now, if you had any question, you may have hypothetically said, why would God mark my body like this? Why do I have to keep this here? Right? Well, Mars and Leo is the reason why. Okay? Now, what does Mars and Leo mean? It points to a plethora of things that you've been working on through the process of your life. Man. Leo has everything to do with one's own self-image, one's ego. And Mars has to do with impulsive expression. So when it comes to things that your ego is invested in, you have a high sense of enthusiasm and you can be easily moved when it comes to these things. Also, I would say that your first child, the first one that you experienced, teaches you to this day lessons in self-restraint and lessons in patience.
Yeah, more.
I would say that you fell in love and that you enjoy competitive games.
Yeah.
You see? Yeah. See, I would say that. Observing them as well as participating in them. See, and I say this because Mars is competition. Leo, and you have the sun in Aries. So that already makes you martial. Whether people see it in you or not, whether you express it outwardly exists within. See? High excitement, easily agitated, easily excited. These things, this is typical Aries shit. Okay? About what though? Because Aries is in the 12th place. It tells us what you're easily excited about. What you're number one, you are always excited about having some alone time. I don't care how much you love your wife and your family, you're going to love this a long time. Okay? Because that is Mars in Leo by itself. And it is the sun in Aries. Mars in Leo is just like the sun in Aries, too. So you have a double dose of ego, refinement, and self-restraint going on here. Okay? And your children expose you to lessons regarding it more than anyone else. Why do I say that? Because Leo, keyword for Leo is children. You see?
Yeah, just to confirm what you said so far, my children are very important to me. And I'm easily excitable and I love challenges. But the funny thing is always like this introvert, extrovert. Am I an introvert, like you said, like love alone time, or I'm an extrovert?
It depends.
Yeah, it depends, because now for the last 4 years I feel lonely. And you said something last time we talked. I feel like I'm too isolated.
Well, you got to know this. Your number one, your birth chart doesn't stay static. So what you see, it moves one day every year. So the chart for this year is how old are you?
47.
So we would look at the 47th day of your life along with the birth chart.
So it's like 1 degree. Like you turn the birth chart 1 degree, or what would you do?
I turn the birth chart 361 degrees for every year. That's how much it turns in one day.
Okay.
The chart turns 361 degrees per day. So we turn it 361 degrees per year. And life manifests at 1/360th of the natural rate of the sky. And how do we know this? Because let's say 1 degree equals 1 year. The sun moves approximately 1 degree per day. Kobe Bryant, 41 degrees and 1/3 degree. He dies. You see, when the sun moves that far. So everything here is a measurable phenomena. This is why people say, I don't believe in astrology. You've never measured because it's not a matter of belief. Do you believe that 3 + 2 is 5?
London is in England, right? We believe.
I mean, you got one here in the United States.
Well, we have a London in the US.
Yeah, we have a couple Londons over here.
Oh, I didn't know that one.
Yeah,
we have Paris here in Denmark.
The point in the matter is, yes, London is in England, man. Do you believe that? If you didn't believe it, would it change the fact at all? No, would it? It's the same thing with astrology. It is a mathematical tool with which to measure the occurrences in your life, period. It has been around since the beginning of recorded time. Man has a tendency to do away with the useless. Here it is, the mad societies, all of the major religions have tried to do away with astrology. It must be awfully useful. It's still here. Aramaic is useless. It ain't here. It ain't here no more. The old Egyptian language is useless right now. Ain't nobody using that shit. Okay? So, but astrology is still strong as hell. Okay? So this tells you that it must have some use. It must have some practical use, or it would fall into oblivion like everything else that doesn't have practical use.
Which is true.
I mean, if you're going to let the record speak for itself, it has never gone anywhere. It has never disappeared. So it is something that man has been using consistently since he found it.
Yeah.
Where in academic circles, that's no real argument. That's just my sentiment, okay? But I can demonstrate it too.
Now, it's like whenever you go somewhere where you don't have all the fog, light, you just see all the stars. And it's kind of obvious that people looked up there, and some people get curious and start to, be very meticulous and start writing things down.
Most people.
But writing down everything, I don't think most people would.
Oh, yeah, not that part. But everybody is interested in astrology.
Yeah.
Most people are interested in it.
Yeah.
Because, I'm going to tell you how I know this. I can go to any event, okay? And let's say I go outside to smoke a cigarette and somebody pulls up on me and I give them a sample. Before I'm able to finish reading them, there's another person there that wants to get ready. That crowd just grows. and this, when you get good at this craft, that happens all the time.
Yeah.
So everybody has an interest in it. Basically, what I'm seeking to convey is that the more people are interested in it than not.
Yeah, but
the people that are not interested in it.
But they still say, I don't believe in it. They're kind of like curious.
Well, it's really hard to believe in something you don't know. See, if you did not know addition, arithmetic, then you would not believe necessarily that 2 + 5, is 7. You don't know it to believe it.
Yeah.
You believe it because you know arithmetic, and you know if you add 3 more items to a pile of 5, you're going to have 8 items there. Okay? So you know this. But the person that doesn't know it is left restricted to an opinion. He doesn't know. All he has is an opinion. An uneducated one at that. So when they can't believe in things that they are not informed of. When somebody says they don't believe it, but though it is not known to them, all they're doing is admitting that they know nothing about it.
Yeah.
Of course you don't believe in it. You don't know anything about it. The first thing about it, to have a belief.
So now if someone is curious and listen to here and says, okay, I want to know more about astrology, what are the paths? I mean, you went and devoured lots of books and then you practice. What would be the path to go for some?
You just said it. Number one, in any Western country, it's in every single bookstore. The best books are in the universities. You can walk right up on campus and get them. Go in the university. The best books are on campuses. You have to buy some books. You have to buy astrology books, but they're all over the internet. They got thousands of PDFs on the craft, for free. So anybody that wants to know it can learn the fundamentals of it through books. You're going to learn the application of it through practice. You see? Because the books give you a simplified version. Everything I said here tonight, as complex as it appears, was ultra simplified version.
So do you have any books you recommend?
The A to Z Astrological Horoscope Maker and Delineator by Llewellyn George. Okay? The only astrology book you'll ever need by Joanne Martine Woolfolk. Any book written by Sequoian and Aker. How to Be a Great Astrologer by James Brown. See, I don't have no one book, man. There's no one book. There are billions of books on astrology. You need to read them all.
Yeah, but
every last one of them, man. Start with any one of them, because they all break down the basics. So you need the basics. So it doesn't matter what book you start out with. Get the book that gives you the basics. Okay? There are no books out there that actually that I know of, because I might be wrong. I haven't been to London. I haven't been to England. I don't know what's on their bookshelf. I haven't been to Puerto Rico. I don't know what they got on the bookshelves of it. But here in the United States, I have not seen any books that lay out for you step by step exactly how to perform the math you need to perform to do the predictives. You have to engineer it yourself. And astrologers often come up with methods that vary one from another because of this.
Yeah. And I know you're also giving classes, or you said your students, they have to find people because they didn't have the 60 people you had working.
Yeah, they have to use the people in their environment. They're not going to have people running to them like I did.
Yeah.
You see, I got into astrology before the internet. So I was doing it by hand. I did so many charts by hand that I'm able to do a lot of it in my head. Not all of it, but a lot of it. I'm able to do in my head because of the constant flux. Now, I can't imagine where I would be astrologically had I not had that experience, that opportunity to encounter so many people that were coming for it. You see, it's different when you say to one of your friends, yo, I want to read your chart. And he says, yeah, cool. And then you start reading his chart. Now you're saying shit about him that he doesn't want to admit to. Yeah, he thinks that you should know about him. So he may dead it. He may dead it right there. Yeah. I don't want you reading my chart anymore. I won't be needing that anymore. I don't like it. Or he just doesn't talk about it anymore ever again. Where it's different when you have people coming to you for it. You know, nine times out of 10, my phone ring, that's somebody wants an astrological reading. Okay. All day long, every day, people are calling me for readings. I hear from my friends and family scarcely compared to the fact that I know. So everybody has an interest in anything that reveals more of themselves to themselves. And astrology is just that. Those people that don't believe it, that profess they don't believe it, they have never examined it either.
Yeah. So, but basically, you are giving also classes.
Oh, yeah. Teaching classes. You can call me at 516-881-6992. You can reach me on WhatsApp. Okay. You call me between 1 p.m. and 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, wherever you are in the world. Okay. Because I'm reluctant to answer the phone outside of those hours. And you might have to call more than once to reach me. Okay. Say, and you express that you would like to learn predictive astrology because that's what I'm teaching. I'm not simply teaching people how to read. I'm teaching people how to calculate predictive charts. There are several steps to executing that feat, and this is what I'm teaching you with that regard, as well as how to track the planets and how to interpret them. That's basically what you're learning when you come to me, right? My school, it's a 5-month course. All of the classes are done in video format so that you can have a copy of your class so that, I don't have to repeat myself to death. You could just play it over and over again until you get it. And they're all transcribed. All classes are one-on-one. Yeah, because some people are more mathematically inclined. Some people are more visually inclined. So the person who is mathematically inclined is going to conceptualize how to perform this calculation faster than the person who sucks at math.
Okay, so it's a one-on-one course.
So it's one-on-one. So nobody has to wait on anybody. There's no disturbances. It's just one-on-one with the teacher, man. And when you become adept at it, then my students naturally gravitate to one another and they start to form in study groups. My thing is to teach you how to do it. Once you know how to do it, to make sure it's consistently stamped in your head so you can continue to do it. You continue to do it, you continue to get better at it. This is a science that, because it is applied to anything in life, you learn more and more about life every day simply from the practice of this science. Just your own life, but life, period. The lives of others.
No.
You understand why people are going through what they're going through too. Whereas as a kid, you don't understand this stuff, People don't understand why the tragedies have happened to them, And I think that's the most healing aspect of this science. There's a woman who was raped by her father, okay? And she asked me to read her chart. I read everything except the sexual assault from a father figure, right? Because we were in public. And she said to me in front of all those people, you didn't read everything. And I said, so you want me to talk about the sexual assault? She's like, oh, it's there? I'm like, yeah, it's there. But if you want to talk about stuff like that, you got to call me. These are sensitive, traumatic situations. And you don't want to address them in front of a crowd of 1,000 people that you don't know. So even though she wanted to, I refused to discuss it publicly. She called me and asked me why. Why would God do that to her, right? And I asked her, what does she do for a living? Because one of those planets was in her career house, and the career house is the same as the father, okay? And she said that she was a counselor for women who had been sexually abused. And I said to her, do you look these women in the face and tell them that you understand what they're going through? She says, of course I do. I said, and of course you understand what they're going through too, don't you? because you've been abused. So the Most High, I guess, this is my rationale, said, yeah, I want you to go down there and save about 5,000 women from their trauma. But you're going to have to get raped to do that, because you're going to have to tell each one of them that you know exactly what they're going through, and you're going to have to know what they're going through. So I'm going to get you raped as a little girl, sexually abused, all that cruelty, so that when you grow up, you can say these 5,000 people. Okay. Now, her question was, well, why would God do that to me? I said, would you have been sincere had that not happened to you? Would you have been sincere when you look in their face and say, I understand what you're going through? No, there would have been no sincerity in it. Would you have really been dedicated to helping the women had you never been traumatized? See, that trauma did a lot of good for all those women. It was bad for you, but it was good for all of them.
Wow, that's healing.
Yeah, that's the healing. See, now she can deal with the fact that her father raped her. Or she can't, but she can deal with it better. You understand? At least she knows that it was part of her destiny.
Yeah. So,
and that's the point. Because people don't, the Most High puts you here without a full recollection of all of your other past lives. So all you have is this life. You're just asking yourself, damn, why would he do that to me? Put me in a fire when I was 2 years old. Now I'm all ugly and shit. And nobody wants to be my friend. They all make fun of me. Why would the Most High do that to me? Obviously, there's a lesson in it. And the lesson comes out of the placement that gives the injury, also gives the lesson too. Okay, like how? Yeah, Mars in the first house. Okay, a person with Mars in the first house is going to have a head or face injury at some point in their life. By the time they reach 30, it will be a manifestation. Okay. So, well, what did I possibly do to deserve a big old scar on my forehead? Right? It isn't that. Mars, that's the physical action of it. The scar on the head is the physical. The psychological of it is that I had to learn how to deal with my violent impulses. Okay, or my sense of impulsiveness or my reflexes, because that's what Mars is. So I got that gash in my forehead because I wasn't properly aspecting my reflexes. I wasn't properly asserting myself. Maybe I was over asserting myself and ran headlong into it. So the lesson is there psychologically, socially, because I'm a highly impulsive person, I tend to rub others wrong, right? So you learn through that experience, and Mars in Aries is a direct indication of such a lesson being learned through the course of your life, as well as the injury to the scar on the forehead.
So you mean the injury I have here with the missing tooth? I broke twice the teeth. Once.
The teeth are Saturn, and what we have also are progressions and transits. Yeah. In other words, let's say you have Saturn here in your birth chart. Okay? And it indicates the teeth. In your birth chart, there may be no indication that the teeth are going to get knocked out or that the teeth are going to get chipped. But by transit, when we look at the current sky, the day that your tooth got chipped, Mars formed a relationship to that Saturn. And that's why it got chipped on that day. You see, this is how the medical astrology works.
So, would that be all around the planet, people would have problems with their teeth that day?
No, Saturn isn't the teeth for everybody. For example, one person gets his tooth pulled, right? That is Mars conjunct Saturn. Another person, their father gets arrested. Another person falls down a flight of steps and scrapes his knee. Because Saturn is the knee, Saturn is the father, Saturn is the tooth. It can't all happen to one person all at once. His father gets locked up, his tooth gets pulled out, he falls down and hurts his knee all in one instant. So they spread that out. Everybody gets the Saturn Mars, but everybody doesn't get the same form of it.
So that's how these general readings
One person born with Mars conjunct Pluto gets shot in the chest and dies of the gunshot wound. The person born on the exact same day as him gets vaccine and dies of the puncture. Okay? Both of them died a Mars-Pluto death.
Okay.
Mars and Pluto's also dying in a fire. So where this person died because he got vaccinated and his body had an adverse response to it, this person had tooth surgery, and this person was only wounded, was bitten by an animal, a ferocious animal. Mars and Pluto points to all three of those.
Yeah, it's like astrologers on the web, on YouTube, wherever, they have like, June, this is happening because you have the retrograde of this planet and that planet. So that's basically how it is. And then you would have to figure out how your birth chart is in comparison to what's happening right now.
Well, yes.
But
yes,
it's kind of like a big event could happen.
Absolutely, yes. But it's not that simple. But yes. Okay.
Yeah, but is that when
let me explain. Okay. Let's say earlier I said to you that the natal chart is the official promise that is ushered, right? And that everything that happens consequent is a manifestation of the birth chart. Okay?
So that's basically your purpose.
Your purpose and all that is in there. I have Mars square Pluto. My wife has Mars trine Pluto. So in the natural sky, the current right now, what's going on right now, sky, when Mars conjuncts Pluto, it rings my square. But for my wife, it rings her trine.
A conjunct means the 5 degrees apart max or something like that.
Yeah, it runs over it. It comes into contact with it. Okay? It conjuncts. It touches it. All right? So when it touches it, when it triggers when it, in the natural sky, everybody sees Mars conjunct Pluto. They come together like this.
Yeah.
Okay? Mars is the faster planet. Pluto's is this hand, Mars is this hand. It comes over. This is the conjunction. This is what a conjunction means, and then it moves here, right? Okay, right there, that Mars-Pluto conjunction is going to affect all of us according to what our birth chart said.
Okay, yeah. Squaring means something.
This person will hit the lotto on that day, and this person needs surgery. This person, a family member dies, and this person, his brother gets a promotion.
Okay. Yeah. It depends if it's square, if it's in triangle, if
it depends on what the promise is.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't matter the aspect in the birth chart. They can be unaspected at birth.
Okay.
They still give, and they have a position, and thus they give a narrative. And by consequent motion, that those two planets that are unaspected in the birth chart are going to become aspected at some point in this person's life if they live. So it's going to happen anyway, whether it's in your birth chart or not. You know, everybody, for example, everybody on the fucking planet knows what fire is, man. Everybody. Mosquitoes, dogs, cats, butterflies, insects, worms, fish. We all know what this is. We've all been burnt.
Yeah.
A fish, right? We don't know if a fish is.
There's underwater volcanoes, so.
So, yeah, there you go. So my point is, we can take for granted that everybody at some point in their life is going to come into contact with fire.
Yeah.
This is not difficult. Okay, now, Mars in the birth chart points to fire. It's going to be in a sign. That sign will describe by its traditional delineation, its traditional attributions, what part of the body got burnt or what you were doing when you got burnt.
I can see today's talk is a lot about Mars.
Well, I did Mars because I can complicate matters and talk about every planet, right?
Yeah, no.
But the nomenclature that I'm talking about here is I'm using Mars because I'm talking to a martial person. Give the sun an Aries.
Yeah, I have a lot.
And to be honest with you, Mars is one of the what it points to in life is very common for everyone. See, everybody knows who the police are. Mars points to police. See, everybody doesn't know who's doing their accounting. See, Saturn is the accountant. So why would I pick something that is not very common if I'm teaching people, so naturally I'm picking Mars because
and
everyone is very familiar with Mars.
And I also chose unconsciously a red shirt.
Yeah.
I was wondering which shirt should I wear.
Well, I'm having a Mars today.
Okay, so you're not always that fiery. So that's just today.
I'm having a Mars in Aquarius today. And Mars is my face, right? And Aquarius is this computer, and it's not my face being projected over the internet. It's right there. And you think you chose what? We chose this day last week, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it happens to be on a Mars day, and I'm on here with a martial character.
And I did martial arts for some time. I have problems with bleeding, gums, and the other way around. I have no idea for some time.
Yeah, well, I can tell you,
a lot of tension on the left side.
I can tell you the bleeding gums, you need to salt rinse, okay? Salt rinse. And you need to get to a dentist so that he can get the gingivitis out from under your gums. Because that's what that is. Brushing your teeth is not going to help you here because that shit done got under your gums, champ. Okay? And this is the reason why they bleed. Because the blood is trying to push the infection out from under between the teeth and the gums. Yes, go get your teeth cleaned, man, and you'll be all right. Or that gingivitis will turn into periodontitis, and there won't be nothing you can do about that. And how do I know? How do I know?
You experienced it.
Yes.
I mean, experience is the best teacher sometimes.
Yeah, it's the only real teacher. You don't know anything you don't experience to be real, to be absolutely real about it. You only know what you've been exposed to. Other than that, you don't know.